Well, hello, drum people. How's it going today? Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're having a good Wednesday, April 15th. Kind of funny how the year's sort of slipping past us, right? Well, hello, drum people. Yeah, you be quiet. You. So, my trials and tribulations with live streaming. I'll tell you one thing I've discovered is that YouTube is far, 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 far superior to Facebook. Facebook is just their codecs or whatever they're doing, however they're running their audio video connection, because it's two separate things, video and audio. You just, it's not just like one thing that goes through. It's two channels. And it's actually, I think, 3 channels. Yeah, left, right, audio, and then the video. But now there's more channels, because you got 5.1, 5.2, and all that stuff. So there's a lot of audio tracks embedded in there. And it's a matter of just getting everything synchronized up. It's, speaking of synchronized, that's what I hope to accomplish today. I've been thinking about it. There's a lot of young drummers out there right now who are just kind of craving lessons. And, everybody's got their methods for developing. And I come from an old school sort of background where you pick a thing and you just work on it for a while until you get it. And just through sheer repetition, you're going to do it. But in order to do all that, it helps to have a work area that's nice and clean. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're a student, chances are you've got your box of pencils and your backpack with all your things that you could possibly need. Scrap paper, good clean paper. You've got erasers. Probably now you just bring a laptop to class, right? Do they allow those yet? Back in my day, you had a pencil box and a freaking book bag and put your stuff in it. And so that constitutes a good working area and a clean area, not a lot of clutter that can distract you, things like that. So the first thing I recommend for anybody who's looking to improve their ergonomics on the drum kit is take a look at your area. Where do you play? Is it crowded? Does it make you kind of like cringe just getting? Is it like going through a bad neighborhood to get to your drum set? And I'm not talking about what's outside the room. I'm talking about like the immediate surroundings of your drum kit. I mean, is it like trying to, you have to do a triple Lindy to get, to flip over and get it into the kit? I mean, those kind of things, that's all like mental static that gets to you and starts to wear. And whenever I set up, I try to set up with as much room behind me as I can, because number one, I don't like being shoved into tiny places. I'm not a tiny person. I'm sorry. I'm 6'4", 220 pounds. I'm a fairly large person. And being shoved into tiny little places is not something I really look forward to. I get a little claustrophobic. But having a work environment, hey Al, how's it going, man? Having a work environment that is clean, neat, tidy, whatever you want to call it. You've got things at your fingertips. Like I couldn't do this here if I didn't have specific things. And as I go along, and I develop my abilities to do this live casting or whatever they want to give the name for, whatever the flavor du jour is, I need certain things. And that's why I got the Stream Deck here, so I can just push a button and change camera angles. Speaking of cameras, my cameras I'll have them in a couple of weeks. I talked to Zoom today, and they haven't. They're waiting on a shipment to come in. So because everything's delayed because of ports and stuff. Anyway, so having a good, clean work environment, and you'll notice all my cymbals. Number one, they're not incredibly clean, but they're clean enough. Now, some old school folks will be like, "Oh yeah, you got to take it and bury it in the yard." Yeah, that's good to do. Some people don't like to clean their cymbals. I personally, it inspires me when I clean my stuff. Because number one, it's shining, and all of a sudden it looks a bunch newer. It's like, oh, look at my cymbals, they're so clean. I don't say it like that. But, you get the drift. I've got just some cymbal cleaner, wipe on, wipe off. It's, you don't have to get in there. What I used to do is get the Never-Dull out, and you got to get Never-Dull and rub it in, and you're sitting there scrubbing. It took forever, right? And it's probably, the technology's gotten a lot better since then, I can tell you that. So just keeping your stuff clean. Okay, so if your drum heads are kind of beat up and banged up, you might want to consider replacing them. But if you can't replace them, what you can do is you can loosen them all, and you take a hairdryer. Don't use a heat gun. Just don't. You take the hairdryer, put it on high setting, and then, just blow the head out like that. What happens, Mylar has a memory. And when you blow out the heads like that, it makes them tighten up and it come back, and they'll get a little more life out of them, you see. I mean, unless they're just completely just shot to hell and it looks like, 100 people have played on it. It's got a Remo logo on like the 50s or something. A really real vintage stuff, right? The one your dad gave it to you and it belonged to your granddad and it still has the original heads. Yeah, maybe you want to get some heads replaced. I've actually, I've got a ton of gently used heads. I mean, stacks of them. 10, 12, 14, 16, 14-inch snare heads. A few kick drum heads. I'm thinking about letting them go pretty cheap. So if anybody is interested, shoot me a note and we'll work something out. Maybe I'll put them up on my website as saleable packages. How's that? That's what I'm going to do. Yes, I'll put them on my website for sale. Signed or unsigned, I don't care. I'll sign it for you. Hey man, that's fine if I just happy somebody's buying it. So anyways, that's a good idea, huh? So having heads that make the drums sound good is also a good thing. It's a good ergonomic principle, because you've got something that feels good when you hit it. There's nothing like new heads. And drum heads are like chewing gum. They start out, that real kind of, it takes a minute to kind of, crack the flavor open, and then you find that sweet spot, and, oh, yeah, there it is. And then after a while, they start to slowly lose their flavor. And the good thing is that hairdryer trick I just mentioned will help you, and it will help get some flavor out of the heads, more flavor anyways. Anything that's not maintained, maintain it. Lube your lugs. And what I mean by lubing the lugs, when you blow out the heads, just take the heads off, actually. You can do that. It's not a hard thing to do. Some of your drums might have these rims mounts, so take a picture of it and see how it all fits together. And I think taking your gear apart is a really good thing to do. So if you keep the lugs lubed, then they won't bind when you tighten them. So it's a really good idea to do that. Don't use Vaseline. Just don't. And don't use white lithium grease. I worked at Orange County Drum and Percussion. I worked at other drum shops. I've done all that stuff. White lithium grease builds up on the inside of the lug casing, and it can start to damage the wood on the inside because it's just this cruddy paste. It's gross. You literally got to put it in a parts washer to get that crap out of there. I mean, it's pretty ugly. So I recommend either straight up 3-in-1 oil, just 3-in-1 oil like this right here. I keep a bottle of it kind of handy close by. A lot of times, new strings on a guitar, baby. Heck yeah. Yeah, and a lot of times I'll just kind of like maintain as I go. So like if my hi-hat nut starts coming loose too much, then what I've realized, it's probably not tightening as much as it could be because it's binding up. Now, if you keep binding threads, eventually something's going to give, and most likely the wing nut's going to strip out on you, which is a pain in the butt. So keep all your stuff lubed really good. And the funny thing is, if you want to make something tighter, you got to put some lubricant on it because it allows that thread to work and get dug in even deeper. So those are some good things. Okay, now as far as physical ergonomics, let's talk about physical ergonomics. Half the time when I teach drum lessons, when I was teaching at Seattle Drum School, I get these players that slouch forward because they like No, here, let me approximate. You know, they slouch inwards, and what happens there is your back it curves forward. And if we think about ourselves as satellite dishes, because what we do as musicians, we're not just people who play an instrument. We're energy brokers, okay? We take energy, we take thought energy, and we turn it into sound by way of our hands, by way of our instruments. Drummers' instruments are sticks. Forget all this right here. When it comes down to it, we make music with our sticks. That is our main instrument. Start thinking that way. So you become a better stick player. And then when you become a better stick player, just by default, you're going to be a better drummer. Get it? Cool. Okay. So you'll notice my drums are almost pretty much flat. I would say they're at about a 10, 15 degree angle towards me. The reason why I play with my drums flat like that is because it allows my hands, it allows me to use the backs of my hands. Okay, so my grip is kind of weird. I grip back here on my pinky and my ring finger. And you see how open my hand is? You see how everything just floats in there. Now, if I put my thumb right here between my middle finger and just kind of cradle the stick like that, the index finger, my pointing finger, it becomes like an idler, like a tensioner on a bicycle chain. You know, it allows it to move a little bit, but it keeps control of it. And so when you're playing buzz rolls and stuff like that, playing a buzz roll, that's the time when you're, going to really tighten your hand up. Everything that you do should come from the fingers, except when you're cracking a backbeat. Think about it. Your fingers are your tiny little movements. When you like that, that's just fingers right there. Your fingers are the thing that actuates that. So they're not going to be incredibly strong. That's where your wrist comes in. Wrist and fingers. Oh, that's a deadly combination. Yeah, you got to. So that's why it's important to deal with technique. What is it? Matt Patella. He's a drummer here on YouTube. He's probably live right now. He's great, and his whole thing is technique, stick controls. He's a Jersey guy. He's awesome, man. I mean, I think his live casts are amazing, and he's just one of those guys. He is a drummer as far. I mean, you're not going to define him as anything other than a drummer. And that's good. That's where I hope people see me, but usually there's a few other adjectives that get thrown about, but hey, it's another day, another time. So I keep my toms angled because, see, it's just as much angle as I need in order to be comfortable. It keeps my hands up because if they're angled in, then I end up using arms like this, and it becomes like, you're using less of your fingers. So when you get your fingers in there, you can get on top of it a little more. And so everything starts from the snare drum. If you sit down and you kind of like get your form together, here, make a cross with the sticks, bring them down to right angles, and just kind of hold them there where it's comfortable in front of you. That's where about your snare drum should be. It should be about, see, mine's just a little lower right now. So, because my seat's high. You see, so it's about an inch from the head. That's exactly where you want it to be. Because you don't want it to be low. Anytime you play low, you're playing through your stroke. And what I mean by playing through your stroke, think about a baseball player. He swings right here. Right about here, where this arm is starting to straighten out, that's the power, that's the strike zone, correct? That's where you're going to get the most power coming out of it. If you hit it past the follow through right there, past the the apex of the swing, then everything past that's going to be weaker because that's the explosion of energy on that side. Same goes with drums. So when you play drums, the head should be in a place like an inch under your resting stick area right there. And about an inch under is okay because that's where you want to return to. This is like home base. So if I'm playing single strokes. See, I'm back in form. I'm back to the home base right here. I don't have the fastest singles, but having the form and technique right there, that's something that is way more important than speed. Having good form, you have to pay a lot of attention to that. Well, as much as you can. If you're young and learning, get hand lessons. Just take lessons on hands, on your rudiments. Seriously, just stick control stuff. Just drill that stuff as hard as you can for as long as you can. It's really important. Interactions between the other instruments here. So let's go. Let's start talking about the feet. So my pedals are. See if I can zoom this in here. God, Zoom is such a buzzword now. I got Zoom cameras, and then there's a Zoom. What is it? The Zoom software, which is really confusing for the Zoom people, I bet. Let me see if I can pull this out of the way. You guys see my pedals? Let's see. Let me get over here. Can you see those? So I got my main kick pedal right here, my hi-hat pedal here, and then here's my double bass drum pedal on the outside. I have it on the outside. So why do I do that? Because of this. Because when I put my snare drum in here, I like my hi-hats to be a little more forward, like kind of towards the front of the kit. And the reason why is because when I'm playing, I don't have to play crossed over. I cross under. See this right here? See this gap? See right here? Nothing strikes. Nothing's in the way. Traditional grip too. And that works for me. That might not work for everybody, but I like having my hi-hats toward the front. And just so it makes it so where I don't have to cross over. As far as my pedals go, the throw on them, I guess I should pull this back again here. If you notice, let's see if I can get it in there. Come on, you. Can you see the throw on my pedals? It's like pretty much 90 degrees. I've got them set back as far as I can get them. The reason why is because why would I want to hit a drum coming from only halfway? Why would I only come to here? Look at all the power I'd be wasting. See, I've got all that up at the top. So if I only go halfway like that, that's not going to give me the optimal power that I want. So, as a result, I set my beaters back, and when I put my feet on the footboard, then it sort of preloads a little bit of tension on it. And it becomes sort of a teeter-totter mechanism. The farther back on the pedal that you pull your foot, you get the ball of your foot close to the hinge, and you'll just feel all this crazy springiness. And when you first notice that, when you first learn that, your foot wants to go really fast. It's like it starts running away. You know, have you ever been running down a hill and you can't stop? Because if you stop, you're going to eat it and fall, and maybe break your arm or something. So you have to just kind of keep running, but you can't run. It's like, just perpetual motion. That's what it's like to try to grab that. So your foot on the footboard is going to kind of determine the way you play. So towards the front of the drum, that's where, the front of the pedal, that's where you can get the most power. But on the back of the pedal, that's where you're going to get the most speed. But check it out. Your leg weighs a lot more than your arm. And you've got all that stomping power. So if you raise up on your heel and you keep on the ball of your foot, geez, I wish I could show you this right here. I don't have my other cameras in right now. But let's see. If I had my other cameras, I could just switch scenes. So you see, raise your heel up like this, and then you drop your heel. Try that motion out a little bit. So you raise your heel up, and you just kind of like drop it, and the ball of your foot actuates. So in other words, to kick the bass drum forward, you just drop your heel using the weight of your leg. Is that too much of an explanation? You'll have to try it. I always say, go and mess with it. And same thing with your left foot. So if you keep your foot toward the back of the pedal, raise your heel up, and then drop your heel, and let your foot kind of fall underneath it, that's where you're going to start developing some new bass drum techniques. There's a million different ways to play the kick drum. There's a lot of techniques out there. I think it's pretty amazing that people have actually, come up with these advanced sort of, crazy techniques for the bass drum foot. Jojo Mayer comes to mind. He's really developed that. There's so many guys. Alex Cohen, he's a young drummer out of New York City. I actually took a lesson from him. He just turned 30, I think. He's got great feet, and I wanted to know about what he did to get to that level. And so he's written a book, and I'll probably end up picking up a copy of it because it's really cool stuff. Oh, cool, Al. Thanks, man. So, basically, my set, it's set up pretty, not really spread out, but everything is where I can get to it. I don't have to use a lot of motion to get to where I want to go. Of course, having to reach around this way right here, so that this tom back here is mostly, for when I use my right. I'll most likely hit this with my right hand first, but unless I come around from here, and I'm pulled over because this is a little bit uncomfortable for me. And I just added the 16 within the past couple of years, and I have to tell you that I started having shoulder trouble when I added the 16-inch tom because of reaching back here and throwing my right hand down in this manner, like that, having to throw it over to get a sound out of it. So that's something I've had to take into consideration because it sucks. I can feel things popping in there. And so cymbals, let's talk about these. So my cymbals, I keep them low and flat for a couple of reasons. I keep them low and because I like to be able to see who it is I'm working with. And a lot of places that I play, trying to keep the sound sort of down, pulling things in. If you got a ride cymbal up really high, it's going to it's going to get, it's going to project more because it's up higher and the sound is driving outwards. If you've got stuff down low, it's going to stay mostly in that area. Yeah, sound spreads and, kind of like it explodes out forward. Well, pretty much mostly forward, whatever direction the instrument's facing. But if you were to visualize how sound comes off instruments, it's like you hit it and like a big ball of fuzz goes out and it sort of dissipates like clouds of smoke. And so you have to take into account the size of the room that you're playing in for the kind of sound you're going to emit. If you're playing in a big room where, it doesn't matter how loud you play, then, play as loud as you want. If you're playing in a room, with people eating and you're at a diner or something like that, and with any luck, the room will have some sound control. You have to play quieter. You have to be in congruence with your environment there. So that's I think the one word that really pulls everything together is congruence. Because if you're in congruence with the room, if your playing is in congruence with the music, if your music is in congruence with the crowd, who you're playing for, and all the musicians are in congruence with one another, then that's everything is right with the world at that point. So that's the one word. If I were to describe what I try to shoot for in any gig, it's just congruence. Just makes everything, everything just flows right. So that's one thing. Getting your flow on. That's the main sort of idea out of all of this. Ergonomics, technique, the way you set things up. Oh yeah, so let's talk about. I want to finish talking about my cymbals. I have them flat because if they're turned in too much like that, then I don't get enough strike. I don't get enough hit on it. Because you want to, with the sticks, if you hit them with the shoulder of the stick right here, kind of glance off of them like that. It's a ride cymbal, so I'm going to attack it more directly. And like that. It's more of a glancing blow. And having them up flat like this allows me to capture that a little more. So I hit probably like that right there, straight arm. But what I want to avoid hitting is like this, chopping it like that. That's how you break stuff. Or hitting it like with a tip too much, like in the middle or something, on a crash cymbal especially. Or in my case, the butt end. So trying to honor the cymbals as much as possible, I suppose, by having them set at a place that is beneficial to us both, where I don't have to reach too far and they're not getting killed by my sticks. One other thing I'd like to mention is cymbal hardware. You see here, I've got these the wing nuts, and on this kit I'm using these rubber gaskets, Sonal Percussion. I've got these little rubber gasket things, and what they do is they're felt replacements, and these are like hard rubber. They allow my cymbals to really sing out. I like stuff. I like to hear all the frequencies of a cymbal. I don't put tape on them or anything like that. But let's see, get on there, you. And this wing nut here is, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's flipped upside down so I can control the sway of the cymbal. I don't want it to swing too much. Like this right here, you see how this right here, if I touch it, it just kind of like does this. Well, I don't want that particular cymbal to do that much. Drum Workshop figured all that out a long time ago because they've got these nice little adjusters on the bottom that allow you to set your cymbal sway, and it makes such a huge difference. I don't know. DW is not paying me to say that, but they do make some nice stuff. I'll tell you that. Their hardware's killer. My ride cymbal, I like it up in this sort of, traditional place. A la, Vinny or Weckl or, Steve Gadd plays his ride cymbal, a little bit more towards the front. I tried putting it up front, like more in front and center, but I didn't dig it. I didn't like it there. And when I play a 4-piece kit, my ride's, probably about here. But I like where it is right here because it makes me have to reach out a little bit. And then I got my cowbell here. It's sort of tucked in. It's out. It's just close enough to where I don't have to reach for it, and just far enough out of the way that I don't stumble over it when I'm playing other things. This is a little bit out of the way because, well, it's just more of an effects cymbal, so I don't need it so close to me all the time, but it's still in a very accessible position. And finally, I got my crash over here. I go through these phases where I'd have to have everything in as tight as I could get it, and eventually it'd start being like, oh my God, I'm getting crowded. Or my favorite is like, I'm 6'4", right? And so my drum kit, my working kit has a 20-inch kick drum. So it means I can set things up really low. So I set up my stuff like a little kid's kit, and people are like, And when I sit up, they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't realize you were so tall because your drum set's so tiny and you sit down behind it." Because I sit fairly low for being such a big guy, and that's my center of gravity is a little bit lower. That's another thing to talk about is center of gravity, how high you sit on the kit. Your legs should be pretty much parallel to the floor. It's like 5-degree angle for me. If you're shorter, then you'll probably end up sitting a little taller in the seat because you've got a higher center of gravity. And my center of gravity is a little bit lower because there's just more of me, and I have to fold up and find that place, So anyway, those are some pointers and some tips that can help you out. Now let's talk about some movements here. These particular movements are just, I'm just, You can do, the right, left, right, left, or and then take it into paradiddles. Yeah, practice your rudiments around the kit. Single strokes. Tricky for me. That's the only way I'm going to get my left foot good. I'm going to practice this for a minute. With a metronome. Hold on a second, people. What the heck, dude? Hang on, sorry guys. Well, that was kind of dumb. This metronome software is asking me for my login, even though I've paid for it, which is kind of odd. So slow it down a little bit. I'm going to practice 16th notes between my feet and hands with double strokes. And the 15-year-olds go, huh, dude, you play slow. I would have done it. I would have been like, yeah, this guy's boring. No, what I was doing is I'm just mixing up doubles and doubles between my hands and my feet, using my left foot as double stroke as well. That's tricky for me. I've always wanted to develop my double stroke. I've been working. I've had this fantasy for years that my feet will get eventually, as good as my hands. So that's something to aspire to. It just requires discipline and spending a lot of time sitting here doing just that. And for me, I something shiny goes by and my ADD squirrel just kind of jumps right out and does the thing. Speaking of practice and stuff, we were going to do this yesterday, some of these Gary Chafee things. So there's two 2-2-2 ratios, which means in a triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet. The top line on this one is 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet. The bass drum line is 1 triplet, 2, let 1, let 2. The hi-hat's 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet. So the thing to do is you got to get two of those going at once. So, see, there's the interaction. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, kick drum and snare drum. Put on my click. Want to subdivide to triplets here. All right. Hang on a second. Let's do this. Put these at. So I'm attempting to do this a couple of different ways. So it's like the accent. So 1 triplet, 2 triplet, or 1 triplet, 2 triplet, or the 1 triplet. Say 1 triplet, 1 triplet, 1 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4, or 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. That way is a little easier. As opposed to that's trickier because you got to get your foot up. So, and then I go 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet. So accent the second note of that. All right. The idea is just kind of go through them. Let's. The next one is 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet. But the bass drum and hi-hat are switch. 1 triplet. So basically, what I'm working on there is some interaction studies by Gary Chafee, and they revolve around just three notes. And this is from the book Time Functioning Patterns. A lot of this kind of stuff, I wouldn't necessarily prescribe it to beginning drummers because it's not This is something, once you've got the basics and the fundamentals down, well, you have to be able to play, to count first. Counting is really important. You'll hear me say that a lot. And I think at this point right now, I want to sit down and I want to start playing some drums. Or I haven't been playing drums, but I want to play a couple of songs. I've been trying to keep these down to about an hour a day because I play in the morning too. And I appreciate everybody stopping in and checking me out. Let's see, where are we? Oh, cool. Hang on. Okay. Let's find some music. I've been really getting into Simeon's work, Simeon Flick. Really love his work. He's a singer-songwriter out of San Diego. He's on Prime Music too, so you can check that out. This is but we're gonna play Object in Motion right now by Odd Get Even. Without the video. I have a video that accompanies this, but I'm not going to play it here because it uses too many computer resources. Dale Drums, hey, how's it going? Yeah, that tune started out as a drum solo, and for all the newcomers here, that began as a drum solo, and my friend wrote music over the top of it, and that's the tune that he wrote. So I asked him to send me back the track with his music, but without my drums, and then I had to relearn all my mistakes, but as a drum part. How crazy is that, huh? It's weird. It's a weird way to write a tune because there was no click track I used either. You know, you can hear some of the places where I got a little bit loose and weird. I'm still learning the ins and outs of it, but the thing is a couple of that one big drum fill in the middle where it's like the cymbal, you know, the between the crashes like that. Gotta love that. The first time I heard it, I was like, wow, that's just such an obtuse, weird drum fill. And I will probably never play it anywhere, but it sounds cool. But now I get to play it in the song that it came in. So, who played guitar? That's hey Jim, how you doing, man? That's Bill Cornish playing. Those are all keys, and so yeah, keyboard, keytar. I just found Simeon Flick on Amazon Music. He's got his stuff up there. I'm going to get some tracks from him for his new album. It's called Skein, like a skein of yarn. And he's got some, it's only like 5 or 6 tracks on it. If you follow him on Facebook, he's got another album that's he's going to drop, but he had some vocal problems not too long ago, and he just got over them. He's gotten over them, so he's getting his voice back together. I'm gonna play the ones I don't normally play. Give the B-sides a chance today. Okay, which one? Let's see. I do filibuster a lot. This one right here, shoulda, coulda, woulda. No, I do that one. Yeah, I don't get sick of the flick either, man. I could play his music. Matter of fact, one of these days, I've been thinking about it. Coming up soon, I'm going to do a Simeon Flick superset, and I want to get all of his crowd in on it too, you know. So I want to also get links to all his music, you know, and put all his stuff up because he's going through some stuff too, you know. He's a musician. He's been employed as a musician for a while, and he's so good, man. So if you want to, you guys go buy Simeon's music. I'm going to start playing. This is a tune called Miracle for the Cynical. Hey, Dale Drums, I'll see you, brother. This is called Miracle for the Cynical, and it's by Simeon Flick.
Myself, love feels phony. I need a miracle. give up the rules before I even make the start line. Don't know how to schmooze like a chicken with its head cut, with its head cut. Yeah, yeah, I ain't no sharpshooter. Yeah, yeah, I ain't no sharpshooter. I couldn't move her if I tried. Love inside. I come after you, but I'm as picky as a dame coy. Most of you won't do, yet I don't meet my own standards. Or envy or envy, you don't have to move a muscle. Your power's your beauty, and I wish I had it in me, had it in me. Yeah, yeah, I ain't no sharpshooter. Yeah, yeah, I ain't no sharpshooter. I couldn't move her if I tried. Love inside. Some may think that it's uproarious, the way I choose to hate the game. But I never could be spurious. Am I raped at shore, the keepers of the flame? I ain't no sharpshooter. I ain't no sharpshooter. Yeah, yeah. I ain't no sharpshooter. I ain't no sharpshooter. Yeah, yeah. I ain't no sharpshooter. No sharpshooter. Yeah, yeah. I ain't no sharpshooter. I couldn't move her if I tried. If I tried. If I tried. If I tried. I got a girl and she's always after messing with my head. Hug up that word, but she keeps on acting like her heart is dead. Ooh, so she push me away, only to pull me back again. I got a girl and she's always after messing with my head. I got a girl and she's always out there messing with my heart. A wicked double standard, got a bow and swings it like it's hard. Why, oh, I'm home alone, prone, Joan, by the telephone. She won't condone, no one else trying to own the bone. I got a girl and she's always out there messing with my heart. Yeah. Feel like a man, not gonna lie, but I'm not the one to whom she's giving that right. Guy on the side, I'm just a guy on the side. Well, for your profligate trophies. Pretty love, a paper remain bound. Beauty pure, 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 but you only get paid out. Yeah, pretty sure you won't make it 8 count. Five a night you can pull, put your weight. Five a night to your soul, not your taste, not your
Well, guys, I think that's going to do it for me today. That's a good, solid, almost 90 minutes there. Anyway, I appreciate y'all stopping by. Thanks for coming in today. It was fun. I guess I got in about 2.5 hours of playing today. Yeah, something like that. I've been down here for a while. So I'll be back tomorrow at some point. We'll see you then. Peace, love, chicken grease, hair tonic, vitamin C. Wash your hands. Wash your damn hands. Love each other, and I love you guys. Thanks. See you on the flip side, y'all. Now I gotta find the door. Let me go find the door. All right. Okay, over and out. Bye.